Wi-Fi carrier. And it's a form of mind control where this message is sent out through a computer over the Wi-Fi. And that is what the 5G, why the government is pushing for 5G, is because it will give them full mind control over the population.
Oh, wow.
And the NSA agent that activated me, he's the one that told me about it. And I did my homework after that, and sure enough, he was right. There's a couple of books by Dr. Robert Duncan that you should look into. One of them talks about the programs that he helped develop and then developed a conscience. And there's one that's about how to mitigate the effects. It's called How to Tame a Demon. Very good book.
I would recommend people go out there and check that one out. Now, moving along, when did you leave Earth?
1964.
Tell us about it. For all outside appearances, it looks like an elevator inside a high-rise somewhere Manhattan Island. I could not find it today. I do know it is not the Empire State Building, but it's a high-rise somewhere in New York. And you go in the main lobby, and you go into this elevator, and you go to the back, and they tell you, do not touch the walls. And it's got two sets of panels. One is for actually going up and down in the building, and the other one is the panel that connects you directly to Mars. It takes you about 20 minutes. It forms a wormhole. That's why you can't touch the walls, is because they morph on you. They take on an oval shape instead of the rectangular. And they're still there, but they're not solid. And you really don't want to get lost in that. And it takes you from New York City to Aries Prima. And you come out in the lobby, and there's this, in 64, there was this nice-looking lady with dark hair. She would say, "Welcome to Mars." And then the group of us were taken downstairs because the colony is underground, and taken to our bunk room. All of us were used to being in solitary, and now we were in a barracks. All of us together, both genders, no parents. So it was a very odd situation for us. Yep. And we were given uniforms that we had to keep clean, and so we had to learn how to do all that. And they let our hair grow out, the girls. They kept the boys with a military cut, but the girls, they let our hair grow out, and we had to learn how to take care of hair. And our uniforms were brown with white shirts and orange ties. And we would go to school until about 3 in the afternoon, and then we would work in the community garden until dinner time. And then we would eat and showers or whatever and go to bed. Now, how old were you when that happened?
9.
Okay, so you were going to school. You were basically in a dorm, and all that. Okay, and what were they training you in the school? What were you learning?
Reading. We were learning to read and write in German, and we were given German literature as well. We were taught base 60 math, we were taught exobiology because we would be having to deal with the native life forms on Mars, and the Germans were anticipating an empire. And so every race that they knew about, we had to learn about. And we were learning physics. Some of us who were slated to be pilots or navigators learned more physics. And, relativity is wrong. Einstein made a couple of mistakes. First off, the speed of light is not a constant. At high speeds, it varies. Now, it doesn't make any difference if you're on Earth, but if you're piloting a spaceship across the arm of the galaxy, it matters. Also, there's a thing that he called an aether constant that he put in at first and then he took it out. And he was wrong to take it out. It should have stayed. So those were what he did wrong. So the Germans in space do not use relativity. They use quantum mechanics and electric universe, where gravity is a function of magnetism. It's a completely different headspin.
Yeah.
So, I was a navigator, and the navigator's psychic abilities are merged into the computer's hyperspace drive engine. And what you have, you remember hearing about the Philadelphia experiment where the Eldridge, the men were stuck in the bulkheads?
Oh, yeah, people were, parts of their, yes, I sure do. That was bad.
That's the navigator's job to keep that from happening. Okay, we take you from point A into another dimension and then jump back into this space-time at a different point. And in between, we don't hit anything, and we make sure that nobody is in a bulkhead anywhere at any point along the way. That's our job.
Wow. Now, how old were you when you became a navigator, Penny?
I have to think. 1990, how old was I then? About 35.
Okay. And how long were you a navigator for? Because you mentioned you also had piloted a couple fighters, too, at one point?
Yes, I've piloted fighter planes on Mars, 2 different kinds. One looked like an F-15 and one looked more like the modern shuttle. But they were both fighter planes. I was on a freighter for 25 years. I was one of 3 navigators on that freighter. We worked in shifts, and it was 10-hour shifts, so you'd occasionally get a day off. And
where would the freighters travel to?
As the Germans were allied with the Draco. A lot of people hear that and gasp. But there are worse things out there than the Draco, like the folks that live in Aldebaran. Those people are dangerous.
Can you explain to the audience between the Draco and the other what do they look like? What is eerie about them, and why are they dangerous?
The Draco are a confederation of 7 separate races that are all reptilians, and their head guys are basically dragons with wings. And they're humanoid looking, but they're dragons with wings. And they run this huge empire in space. And they're pretty good to the people that live under them, as long as you're loyal. And you give your taxes. But every so often, somebody decides that they want to run their own country, and they rebel, and then the Draco will come in and stomp them. Not only stomp them, but make an example of them, so that nobody else gets the same idea. So they are extremely harsh with rebellions. And we came in as their allies, and we were actually worse than they were.
Why were we
and
worse?
a lot of people I talk to don't want to hear that. They want to hear, "Oh, we're wonderful, and all the good guys are going to want to save us." That's not true.
Why were we worse?
Most ETs out there consider Terrans, that's what they call us, is because we're from Terra. Or they call us Solarians from the solar system, one of the two. Those are the two names for us, Terrans and Solarians. And those two names are like the generic word demon as far as the ETs are concerned. We are that horrific to the races we invade.
I find that very interesting.
And it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't. But we now have this reputation. And so the Draco, at first they were eating us because for centuries they've come and handpicked a few and harvested them for food. And now all of a sudden they're finding out that we're worth having around as military. So they're eating fewer of us. They haven't stopped entirely, but they're heading that direction. The Aldebaran, on the other hand, I've never seen one, but no ship has ever come back from them. And the last messages coming back from them have all been screams. And we've never gotten that from anybody, except the Aldebaran.
Interesting. Well, how big is Earth's Space Force out there on Mars, and where is there other places? Do we have, camps or located besides
We have
Mars?
bases or colonies on every planet or moon in the solar system that's big enough, except Venus and Saturn. And the native peoples who live there don't like us. We're not allowed there. And they're fierce enough that the Germans didn't push it. And we have colonies in Alpha Centauri, the galaxy, that have been there long enough that they're considered independent countries. And we have bases and or colonies scattered throughout the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way. I think we have a couple that are outside of the arm, but we found the old, for lack of a better term, Stargate system that one of the ancient races had left and learned how to use it. And so we've been just exploring the place. And when we found something useful, we would leave people there to take advantage of it. So we've got places all over